What's up, everybody? Today I'm here to do a review of Goosebumps House of Shivers, book number 2, Goblin Monday. Now, this just came out, and I just finished reading this. And this book was a little bit of a disappointment. So, in Goblin Monday, we follow our main character, Mario, who is visiting with some friends and neighbors on one of their family vacations up in Vermont, up in like the snowy wilderness type setting. And Mario is a character who is used to the more like city life and the summer weather. He's from Florida, so he has never seen snow before. And so this is all new to him, and he's very excited about this little vacation that he's going on and to hang out with his friends and see snow for the first time. And as he is introduced to this new environment, he learns that his friends' parents and grandparents, who are also on this vacation up at like this big cabin, I think, are very like strange characters. His friends' grandparents have all of these weird stories and fairy tales and like campfire type stories they tell about goblins and gremlins and imps and various different creatures. And his grandparents act as if these stories are true and tell them quite seriously and in earnest, while his friends don't really believe in the stories. They think it's just kind of a joke and just chalk them up to being just, legends and just stories to tell for the fun of it. But the grandparents are very serious about these stories. And they're also into wilderness a little bit, and they go out in the wild, and his grandfather in particular is very interested in like bird watching and is gifted with like these different bird calls that he can do. And they also, I think, have like a few birds for pets around the house. And Mario, our main character, is very interested in like photography and has a camera that he carries around. And one day, while Mario is outside, he sees this creature that is described pretty much as how it's depicted on the cover of this book here. This green, goblin-like little creature that's green and furry and has claws and sharp, pointy ears. And he tries to tell his friends about this creature, and they don't believe him. They laugh at him, and they think it's some kind of joke. And then, a little bit later on in the story, there is an even more shocking discovery than the existence of these goblin-like creatures. Our main character, Mario, is out on a walk through the woods, and he is following the grandfather figure, who appears to be bird watching at first and is calling different birds and has like a little notebook and is writing down what Mario suspects to be him like taking notes of the different bird species and such. And then the grandfather figure, I believe he's known as Grandpa Tweety in the book. I forget what his real name is, but everyone calls him Grandpa Tweety because he's just so fascinated with birds. Grandpa Tweety calls down like a bird into his hand and shoves it into his mouth and basically eats the bird. And then Mario is of course shocked by this. He runs and tells his friends. I don't even remember their names in the story. I don't even remember. The characters in this book weren't that memorable. But he runs and tells his friends, and they, of course, don't believe him yet again, and they just laugh at him and think that, he's trying to pull some sort of prank on them. And Mario is insistent on trying to get proof and trying to convince his friends of all of the weird stuff that is going on. And as the story progresses and Mario tries to further uncover, what is going on with these strange characters, what is going on with these goblin-like creatures, and he tries to take pictures of them to get proof. And there's a couple of scenes that were really frustrating in this book where he's trying to get proof and trying to convince his friends of this stuff going on. We have a little bit of like, you gotta believe me stuff going on in here, which is really annoying. That's something that we see somewhat often in these types of books, and it's just kind of annoying. And there's one scene in particular that annoyed me where he gets his friends to follow him, and he is basically spying on Grandpa Tweety, waiting for him to eat a bird. And he is about to eat the bird and does so while Mario is spying on him with his friends. And then there's like a cliffhanger chapter ending, and then the start of the next chapter, I think it is, there's a twist where the friends didn't see it. They were distracted by some turkeys walking in the woods, and they missed the whole thing. And it is just so infuriating and annoying. So yet again, he doesn't have his proof. His friends don't believe him. God, that was... I don't know why that irritated me so bad, but it did. It was so stupid. And yeah, pretty much the rest of the book is him trying to convince his friends of the stuff that is going on. And then we get to the climax of the book, and we get, of course, a couple of big twists in the story. One of which revolves around Mario himself. There's a big revelation about his character, who he is, what he is doing on this vacation exactly, and his ties to these people. I did not like that twist at all because it doesn't make sense given the context of pretty much the whole first half of the story. It doesn't align with the decisions that he makes throughout the story. It just doesn't make sense. And I feel like that's one of those twists that the reader, there's no way for the reader to possibly know or to see that coming. It just feels like lazy writing. It just feels like it's one of those twists that's just kind of inserted in there. It just doesn't align with the rest of the story. I did not like that sort of revelation we get about Mario's identity. And then, of course, we do get another big twist, sort of prior to this one. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here. Prior to this twist with Mario, we get another one revolving around these characters themselves, the grandfathers and Mario's friends. This twist was more predictable and made more sense, but I still didn't like it because it was just too predictable, too familiar. Pretty much the same kind of twist we've seen multiple times in other Goosebumps books. It's just very derivative. I didn't like it. So yeah, that's pretty much the plot of this book. And I'll just be honest, I don't really have much to say about this one other than I was pretty disappointed with it. I did not really care for this book. So this one is pretty much borrowing from Werewolf Skin. This feels like a rewritten version of Werewolf Skin from the original series, except we have goblins instead of werewolves. You know, we have our protagonist, like in Werewolf Skin, who is moving to like a completely new environment on like a sort of vacation and getaway. He's very out of his element, just kind of a stranger in this new world. And he has the parental figures who are sort of talking up all of these legends and lores about these creatures. Also, kind of like in Werewolf Skin. And then Mario is also like into photography, just like our main character. I believe his name was Alex from Werewolf Skin, where he is trying to capture proof and photographic evidence of these werewolves. Mario is pretty much doing the same thing in this book with the goblins. So yeah, this one pretty much feels like a Werewolf Skin ripoff and not nearly as good. Much, much worse, in fact. And like I've already mentioned, I did not like the twists in this book. One of them, very predictable. It made sense for the story, but it was just predictable and I didn't care for it. And then the other twist regarding Mario, I did not like that one at all. And then the final ending to this book was just whatever to me. I didn't really care for it. So yeah, this one does also have some elements of like The Girl Who Cried Monster a little bit, to where you have the parental figure who is supposed to be or appear as a good person at first, and then it turns out that they are sort of the villain of the story, and then the main character is spying on them and is basically trying to convince his friends that this person is actually a monster. So it has some elements to it of like The Girl Who Cried Monster. And yeah, I feel like this one is mostly a ripoff of Werewolf Skin though. And I don't really have a lot to say about it, to be honest. I did not really like this book. You know, it's not one of the worst things I've read in Goosebumps. You could definitely do a lot worse than this. But after the pretty solid opening entry we got in this series with Scariest Book Ever, this one just feels like such a letdown. And I wasn't really expecting this to be great. I wasn't really expecting a lot out of this. You know, I'd heard that this one was okay, decent. I've heard some mixed things on this book, but I was hoping it would be at least a little bit better than it was. And it wasn't. This one was just a letdown for me. So yeah, the second book in the House of Shivers series, Goblin Monday, I'm giving this one a flat 2 out of 5 stars. Not quite horrible. There's a lot worse in the Goosebumps franchise, but it wasn't very good either. This is one that I'm just going to forget about down the road. And yeah, that's all I have. have you guys read Goblin Monday? What did you guys think of this book? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one. Feel free to share them down in the comments below. And then hopefully the next book in the series, advertised on the back here, Night of the Living Mummy. Hopefully that one's quite a bit better. And I'm actually somewhat excited for it because it seems like all of the modern mummy books that we've gotten have actually been pretty good. Who's Your Mummy from the Horrorland series, I really enjoyed. The Dummy Meets the Mummy from Slappy World was actually really good and probably the best book from that series. So yeah, so far the modern mummy books have been pretty good. So hopefully this one continues with that trend. At the very least, it has to be better than Goblin Monday. So yeah, that's my very short review for this book. That's all I have for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.